Good morning, folks, or evening, or I don't know where you're watching. There's still international people that watch this somehow. So we're glad to have you, whoever it is. Yeah, we're back. We had a cancellation. We were going to talk to my friend Luke, who happens to be a zookeeper. We were going to talk to him about, well, we hadn't totally nailed it down, but either his collection, which I want to see what a zookeeper keeps, or how that happens, how you become a zookeeper. He's a young dude. So, um, taking care of some great birds at the moment when I happened to see him at the zoo. And it was pretty great. But anyway, he had something come up, so we couldn't connect. So anyway, we're still coming on. Next week, we're going to talk to Aunt Sandy from Aunt Sandy's Skinks, and we're going to talk about enrichment. So for our animals, she has a lot. She's a breeder, so she has a lot of animals that she keeps in tubs, but still manages to get them out and in the open. And we're going to talk about more of that when we have her on. So I guess mostly tubs, the babies, the youngins. So tonight I wanted to talk about slip ups and mistakes that we have in the hobby that we've made. Some of mine, I've talked about some of mine in the past. We're going to talk about some more tonight. I have one behind me. Uh, the mistake there is a misjudgment of time. Um, but yeah, so I've been doing this, keeping exotics and random animals for, geez, forever, for like 40 years now. So I've mentioned it before, we've seen a lot of things in this hobby. The old timers have seen a lot of things where it used to be like the Wild West. And you could get amazing animals for kind of dirt cheap, kind of cheap, um, and readily available for no particular reason. So, like, I think we talked about it before: Suriname toads, Sicilians, very specialist animals, kinkajous, raccoons, children mixed with pit bulls. Like, it was crazy, and all of those things for well under $100. Imagine trying to get a Peepa frog or the Suriname toad today for under $100. I don't think you can do it. I haven't seen them for anywhere near that, really. A couple $100 is what you're looking at minimum. Not to mention the insane setup you need, which you probably needed in the past, but nobody knew that. They would just keep them in a tub or like one of those pond insert situations. Was the only person I knew that had them. That's what they kept them in. But if you can't see them head on, why have them? It's like having a thing of water that, like, it doesn't matter. Like those in particular. Um, but yeah, that boils down to like the biggest, most common mistake that people make and are making, is keeping animals that you don't know enough about. So not doing your homework, not figuring out, just grabbing an animal you think looks cool, which I get it. The impulse, but I also get learning to resist that impulse. I was guilty of it as a young guy, basically catching things and being like, oh yeah, I'm going to catch this and keep it in my house. And oh, desiccated. How'd that happen? I gave it grass like it's used to. Um, but yeah, that would be the main crime that I had as a young guy. Not even a man, a kid. Um, is pulling things up and keeping them in a jar, or I tried to keep a snake in a shoebox. It got away. I like to think that it made its way out back into the wild. Probably not, but we never saw it again. So it got somewhere. Um, Not very funny, honestly, but it is what it is. I mean, I feel like how many animals have gone that way? Too many, undoubtedly. Um, I still have this cough, so you have to excuse me with that. Um, but yeah, bad husbandry is probably the biggest mistake and most common mistake, and we all do it. We've all kind of done it. Um, Most of us don't do it anymore. We do our homework first. Why I mentioned this tank is that I got the inhabitants for that tank before the tank was filled. So I have them in a temporary housing situation, which is that jug you see behind me. So this jug you see behind me has two vents on it, one in the top and one in the side. courtesy of Easy Eddie. The vent, anyway, in the side, in the top, it's literally just the top is kind of busted out, and there's screen there, taped on there really, really nicely. So not ideal, but it's getting them where they need to be. There's a little heat element on there. On the bottom, it's just a piece of that heat cord that you get, that long cord. But there's three morning geckos, and they're two juveniles and an adult, and they're doing fine. They're eating, they're having a great time, very active, way more active than I thought they'd be. We just popped in, hey, so that's good. But this thing's going to be, I'll never not do that. But this thing's going to be pretty awesome when it's done. I'm going to film some of it. We're going to shoot some of it. I don't know if you can see those holes in the back. Those are going to be not caverns, but like little caves, little hides for them. We're going to build those out and then up against the glass so I can check behind there and see them in their hides. There's going to be some stuck to the glass as well, right here, and one on the other side. So right in this small section here, so that they can have a hide where they're going to have some tank mates of vampire crabs. So the vampire crabs won't be able to get to those for sure. But each hide will have two exits, so nobody gets trapped in their hide. But I feel like the vampire crabs will help keep the eggs from all hatching and getting 8 million babies. So that's kind of the law of the jungle, right? The parents are going to eat them. We'll see what happens. We might have to, pull some out and start another situation, another tank to rear some babies first. I feel like a lot of people use the morning geckos as feeders. So I've heard that a lot. That's not why I got them, but they'll be in there way before the vampire crabs, so they'll have some time. There's going to be some killifish or something in the water. I don't know. Maybe killies and neocardinia. We have peanut butter and jelly soda tonight that I've had for 3 months here. We're going to check that out. It seems a little thick. It's another mistake. Start a YouTube show and start eating random stuff on the show to appease the masses, which honestly, it's more for me than you guys. I'm more into it than most of you guys. So husbandry mistakes. That's another one that I do a lot is cohabbing or trying to cohab. I steer away from it lately, mostly because, excuse me, mostly because it's not great, and I'm learning some new philosophies on it. So one of the things that makes it not great is, these animals live together in the wild and they're peaceable enough. Well, in the wild, they have Mother Nature to escape to, a whole forest, a whole savanna, a whole desert, a whole river, whatever. In a fish tank or in a terrarium, in this thing, they don't. Even if there were two different species of springtails, one was carnivorous, one wasn't, there's going to be problems. That's weird and good. That's actually really, really good. Wow. Okay. We really get like the roast of the peanuts in there. Wild. It's probably all chemical. I mean, I'm going to promise you it's all chemical, but it's good. It's good. Let's see. So yeah, where do you do your research is the big question that everybody gets asked. So you want to find your scientific papers, your well-established, well-respected breeders. Hopefully that's who you got your animal from. If they're worth anything at all, they'll just give you the information that you need or offer it somehow. I know there's plenty of information out there, plenty of breeders for isopods. And with isopods, at least, you're going to find as many different husbandry techniques as there are isopods. So, and I don't mean like each one has its own thing. I mean, each keeper does something different. So, and a lot of us will argue about it until we're blue in the face, no matter how badly our information is sourced, how misguided it is, how over the top it is. We'll find all of those things. We'll find every reason not to be wrong. So it is hard. It is hard to find the right way. But I have found with isopods specifically, if you contact 3 different breeders or 3 different friends that have that species, ask them each how they keep specific. In particular, I had Clue Guy, right? Montenegro clowns, and I couldn't keep them alive. They would just dwindle and die off. They never really bred. I think the initial advice was to keep them half and half, right? Half moist, half humid, half dry, with the bridge in the middle, which is pretty standard stuff. Everybody I knew that had them had hundreds and hundreds. I had a dozen, and then another dozen, and then 20. And then I kept them very wet. The first time I did half and half. The second time I did, I think, a third wet, 2/3 dry. That was another breeder that came with that information. The third person I talked to kept them mostly dry. And then the last thing I did was I went back to half and half, but I gave them elevations as well, with the charcoal briquette, not the briquettes, but like the natural charcoal, the burned wood. You know how you get like bigger pieces in there? I stacked those like rocks, basically. And they loved it. They loved it. They took off. I don't know anyone else that's worked for, but they took off. It helped keep everything clean. The springtails in there exploded. I don't know that I recommend that for everyone, but it worked really, really well for me. It was a nice way I could put my calcium powders out there, on one on each side, and be able to monitor that really well. Food could be served on those charcoal bits really well, not worry about a lot of contamination because of the charcoal. So that's kind of a pro tip. It looked nice. Kept humidity under it. They could get under it really well. Basically like a replacement for cork almost. They could eat it a little bit if they wanted. I didn't really ever notice that, but I mean, they could. I don't know. But that's just one scenario. So I got to put those 3 breeders' information into one. Well, also, the last time I started with 50 as a colony instead of 10 or a dozen. I started with 50, and that worked out so well. So yeah, definitely every colony I've started with a bunch has gone insane. So my recommendation, hey Moon, my recommendation is to start with a bunch, as many as you can. Don't do 6 counts. We here at IsoBuddies do not promote 6 counts. We hate 6 counts. If that's all you can afford, I guess, and you want them, do what you got to do. Hey Moon, I think it's just us. There's like one other person in here, but they've been really quiet. So that's kind of fine. But yeah, so 6 counts. I kind of despise 6 counts just because it's really hard to get a colony going from 6. The odds of you getting all 6 males or all 6 females are almost 0, right? It's really low chance that you're going to get all 6 the same sex. But at the same time, if you get 1 female, she's probably going to get stressed to death by all the mating attempts. If you get 1 male, he's probably going to get stressed to death from all the mating attempts. Or maybe he's not viable. You know, maybe he's a shitty male. We don't know. You don't know. Anyway, you want to spice it up. So I would say at 10 is the minimum. Anyone I know that sells 10? Anyone ever heard of the sells 10? You get 12 anyway. So 10 counts are great. But obviously, if you can go more, if you can go bigger, go bigger. Like, why not? Why not do it? I know it's a matter of cost, which is why I say if you can. So if you can, whatever. But you're going to be more apt to have some success there. That and having your homework and your bin set up right and all of those things. Don't be afraid to ask questions. If you go to a Facebook group and want to ask a question, search the group for that question first. Odds are your question has been asked before. Unless it's about a very, excuse me. My cat. Okay, sorry, my cat kept me up till like 4 a.m. last night for some reason. But yeah, don't, I don't know where I was before I started yawning. Sounds right. Don't be afraid to ask those questions. If you have a question about some obscure species or something brand new, which you want to have, because the brand new stuff is stuff that's, you know, hundreds of dollars for a single ice pod. You want to get that information so you have every chance of success. That's where having a 6 count is probably what you can do. But I don't know, man. I hear people paying maybe a couple grand for a starter colony of isopod now, and it blows my mind. Back when it was like 600 for 10, I was like, there's no way. That's so crazy. That's another thing. Research your breeders for anything. I mean, I'm talking about isopods, but this information goes for any animal you could ever want. So, or think that you need. Do your research on your breeders. Ask around. Check their reviews. Ask around. If a deal's too good to be true, it usually is. There are a couple people out there that have amazing deals, or you get like a bucket of freebies when you get isopods from them or an animal from them. Not just a couple stickers. You're talking like tons of stuff. I've had people send me multiple free colonies of random things, whatever. But it was really nice. You know, it's a nice thing. Nobody has to do that. It's a nice thing. But yeah, check on your breeders. Search them by name, search them by business name if you can. There's definitely some bad eggs out there. Some people that are good sometimes and awful other times. Take reviews. It's hard to give advice on that. Kind of take reviews with a grain of salt, but then don't. It's way easier for people somehow to complain about something or talk shit about something than it is for them to speak praise. So obviously, if you see someone with praising reviews, rave reviews, that's amazing, because people don't have to do that, and they tend not to. The statistics on it of who's more likely to leave a comment, like pissed people versus super happy people, it might as well not even exist. It's like 100% of the people that are mad are likely to leave a comment, where like 2% of the people that are ecstatic are likely to leave a comment. That tends to be less true with animals, but it's true in general. So watch out for that. Check the reviews that you're getting. Some of the things people are mad about are superficial or misguided, or they simply didn't understand what was supposed to happen. So don't just look and see, oh, it's got 2 bad reviews. Go look at those reviews. They're probably bogus. So if it's that few, they're probably bogus, or something happened, and whatever. We've seen it all the time. We've seen those things all the time where, oh, it showed up DOA and nobody ever got back to me. And turns out they did, or it wasn't quite DOA, or whatever, misguided, misinformation. People make mistakes on all sides, right? You definitely want to get a breeder that if they do have a situation, they took care of it. They did something to take steps to figure it out. I don't want to say make it right, because it's probably not their fault. Odds are pretty good that a situation is not their fault. It happens. It happens. I've had it happen. I've done it. I've done bad things, not on purpose, just negligence, right? Or being brand new and be like, this will be fine. It wasn't fine. But you make it right. You make it right. It's your fault. You fix it. You want those people. You want those people that you're buying your animals from. And again, people that will share information, like share their techniques with you. Maybe not everything. Like they might not share their substrate recipe with you, but they might give you like the bare bones. Like, here's what you need in your substrate. I would think that it would be fine for most people to give their recipe out. It is a pain in the ass to make substrate for, if you're just a hobbyist that has a couple species of isopod. And I'm using that as again, that's my catch-all, right? But anyone who's doing bioactive is going to be making the same basic kind of substrate, something that's nutritious, something that's not going to compact, something that's not going to mold, something that's, high quality stuff. But you don't want to have, I'd give people my whole recipe. I wouldn't care, because it is a pain in the neck. You have to buy, they don't sell 1 pound bags of dirt or 1 pound bags of whatever supplements you're putting in there. You're going to be buying kind of in bulk. And if you're not using it, it's going to sit and maybe go to waste, like as that dirt desiccates, or whatever soil base you're using desiccates. You're wasting it. unless you're the guy that just keeps it going. That's cool too, I guess. Um, let's see, what else? What else did we have mistakes with here? Make sure make sure your setups are secure. That seems to be a big problem with me. I tend to chase my animals around a lot, so I tend to walk away from cages when they're open um, or not secure, and then spend an afternoon hunting down an animal, or a frantic couple of hours. So don't do that, maybe. Um, yeah, keep these seem very basic, but there's so many people I know that are doing these things, and probably nobody that watches this channel, but maybe someone searches this out and finds it. Yeah, make sure all your locks, double check your locks like you would in your house. So you don't want anybody getting in, you don't want anybody getting out. So poor Bingo over here, you can't see, poor Bingo over here, when I first set that up, had gotten out like 3 or 4 times. And I had to tear the basement apart, which was no easy task. Trying to find her before, she got too cold, basically, was my concern. That was the only issue that I had was, I don't know how long they can go being too cold. Apparently, blueies can go a while. It's not my intention to ever have them go too cold, so I didn't do that part of the research. So luckily, no problems. But she's sitting there fat and sassy right now. So she's doing just fine. Let's see. Making sure you have the supplies, making sure supplies work, making sure your bulbs or whatever that goes with your little hoods or your reflectors are the right size. They don't burn out or cause a fire. God forbid. Space. Make sure you have space. Time for the setup. Everybody in your house is cool with the setup, or at least is like, well, what am I going to do? Be mad? Like my wife is still basically upset that I have a canopy, that I have, several thousand ants that can traverse it up to the ceiling and then back down into another tank. She's not thrilled. It's not her favorite part of our house. Whatever. It is what it is. It's great for me. That was another thing, like not doing research. So, and I'm good at finding solutions for things, but that colony in the early stages had escaped in total several times. I've gotten so lucky with that colony with Sheila. Now she's I think she's back up to like 7,000 or 8,000, but she's a colony of Camponotus discolor ants, carpenter ants. She escaped when she was like 45 workers, the whole colony. I say she, it's not just the queen, it's the whole thing. She's like 35, 40 workers, something like that. She escaped, found her in a potted plant. So that clued me in. So I got her back into a setup. That was fine. She got out again a couple months later. There were a couple hundred workers, again into a potted plant, which I had strategically placed near her setup. It was a small pot though, so that's honestly the last place I looked, because there was just one ant left in the formicarium running around. It was a setup of like tubes, and I had one of those, I 3D printed it. It was a 3D printed, like this big. I still have it. I'm going to put another colony in there soon, but it's about this big, and it has the connectors. You can connect tubes to it, and it can have outworlds and all of that. So she was in that until she was exploding out of it, basically. But she escaped there. All went into this tiny plant. I didn't even know. I went to pick up the plant itself out of the pot, and they just swarmed me. So I recovered her again. Made sure that I had her. That was an adventure. A couple hundred angry Camponotus ants about the size of your pinky nail, probably, just mad, and looking for their boss. Do not recommend. 0 stars. But everywhere she's been, even now, I maintain potted plants near the tank so that they have somewhere to go. Because they're never gone long. I don't ever not notice it. You're checking on them all the time. So maybe they go a full day without you noticing that they're gone. Usually not even. Usually probably at most 15 hours. Your animals could be loose before you notice, especially if you're a little obsessive. So keep something around them. That's my advice. Keep something around, a hide that they might go to, just in case. If you're forgetful like me, You got to take steps to outsmart yourself. Is it easier to just make sure everything is secure? Absolutely. But if you're me, you have to know better. Like, secure is great, but I'm a bit of a scatterbrain, if you maybe didn't notice. So it's better for me to have plans in place. And then I feel super smart that I had that thing like, oh, see, look at that. And if it's a live plant, you're going to make sure it's watered. So it's going to have that humidity that your animal wants. In this specific case, ants. I tried to make setups. So those of you that haven't seen all of my episodes, I put my foot through a 10-gallon tank that had, oh my God, what are giant canyons? I can't think of the regular name. Anyone on here want to help me out? Dilatatus? Never mind. Dilatatus. So I put my foot, I had it at my feet basically while I was doing the show. And when I went to get up, my foot slipped out from under me as I logged off. I just logged off of the show for the night, and my foot went straight through the tank. So I had to go get stitches. I had like 40 stitches or something. 5 different cuts up from my ankle to like the middle of my calf, basically. So, obviously I took off to the hospital to go get stitches. I was bleeding like an insane person, or a regular person, I guess. We probably bleed the same. But that was a nightmare. And then I felt bad because I knew the dilatatus was just going to, like, who feels bad for dilatatus, right? Like, who cares? But I felt bad. I was responsible for them. Like, I am a benevolent God to my creatures. I try to be. But I tried to set up different traps for them. I still haven't. If anybody has an idea for that, leave a comment or tell me in the Facebook group for a good like indoor isopod trap in case they get loose. I couldn't find anything. I tried several different things. I couldn't figure something out. I still find little shells around in the corners and behind stuff or underneath a box or in a box. I still find shells from them. That was like 3 years ago that this happened. Oh, this is really good. So it's peanut butter and jelly soda. And it's exactly what's on the label. I love PBJ. I don't know about you guys. That's a jam right there. Don't try to drink a soda that your ants have infiltrated because they've escaped. Or, a couple hundred of them have escaped. I just had an escape the other night. I don't know what happened. They got through the barrier at one point, so I had to do the barrier on the fly, redo the whole thing while they're trying to escape. That's an adventure all the time, but it has to be done. I didn't realize it was having to be done that soon, so I must have done something that caused the barrier to be weak in that spot. So luckily they weren't getting out en masse. It was like a little tiny stream, a trickle of ants were getting out. There's still a couple hundred, maybe more, by the time I caught it. So at that point, with the ants anyway, if you're an ant keeper and you have a large colony like that, I just really vacuumed them up. I used to try to catch them all, and now I kind of see it. It's an organism, so I kind of see it like you're trimming their nails, right? Because that's really what it is. It's the same as a nail trim or getting a haircut for your dog or whatever higher life form you might have. What else? What other mistakes have I made? Dealing with sketchy people. I've dealt with sketchy people on accident, basically. It didn't occur to me that having the show would have people target me to try to get promotion for themselves. So whatever that is. So I didn't know better. I've had people on the show that I didn't know better. I've bought things or had people send me things I didn't know better so that I promote their show. People do that all the time. If you have a little bit of influence, even a little bit, sketchy people might be prone to send you something to try to make themselves more trusted to even a small part of the community. And that's happened. I'm not ashamed to say it. I am ashamed to say it, but I'm not afraid to say it, I guess. That's happened to me, where people have definitely used me essentially for to promote themselves, which sucked. Those videos aren't around anymore. I basically took them down as soon as I knew. But whatever. I mean, people are going to do what they're going to do. You can't always win. But I would definitely say, like, if you're promoting someone or you got a good deal from somebody, but literally nobody else did, they got hosed. watch out for that. Be ready to adjust your expectations of yourself and adjust how you react to things, because it could be bad. Long term, it's going to look bad on you. So not only are you going to be doing damage to other people, like it could look bad on you. And who needs that? Nobody needs pings on their reputation because of somebody else's actions, right? You don't need to do that. If there's new information out there, there's new information for all of our animals all the time. On the one hand, maybe accept it. Look at it. If it works, I mean, you guys know what you're doing. But if that information works, accept it. Doesn't mean you have to utilize it. Like the old methods are still probably pretty good. Somehow people are still breeding centipedes, or had breeding happen, or millipedes on coco coir. So thanks, Moon. But yeah, I mean, they still have them. I assume they're pregnant when they get to the new owner that has them on coco coir. So I don't know that that's generally a stipulation for millipedes, and specifically. But I hear that it's done. I don't know. But that's neither here nor there on the husbandry method. So check your husbandry method. It may have been updated. Somebody else may be getting great results doing it a little differently, or a lot differently. Sometimes we find amazing things that we didn't know about. So my point is, don't dump on those publicly. Don't dump on those methods publicly if they actually work. Like, what's the point of that? Maybe you do it differently. Maybe you've seen it done differently. Maybe your friend does it differently. That's fine. But if their method is working and is doing well, let it be doing well. It's fine. You don't need to dump on it. I find this more true in some of the amphibian groups, where they just attack each other over minutia, as far as keeping the frogs, or salamanders, or axolotls is a big one right now. Axolotls are way tougher than we give them credit for. As long as you have decent water, they're going to be just, you could do they're basically bulletproof. So in my experience, I guess I should say, your mileage may vary a little bit, but I promise you, if your water's good, they're just fine. What else? What other mistakes? Having the space you need, having the time you need. I don't have a lot of time-intensive pets. So Bingo's probably the most, well, the morning geckos now, but Bingo's probably the most time-intensive, and that's literally like every other day. I check on her every other day. We interact every other day, or every day, and I check on her every day. But I don't really do anything for her. I look and check water level, check that the water is clean. If it's not clean, I dump it that day and replenish it. But it's pretty much every other day is food and water. If I have a special thing I want her to try, like I'll feed her every day. I'll try to get her to eat something. If I just fed her yesterday, I'll try to get her to eat the new thing today and see. But she doesn't even want it every day. So she literally tells me when it's time to eat. If she's hungry the day before feeding day, so say today I feed, which I'm going to, she'd be telling me right now, like, hey, I could go now if you want. But tomorrow, if she's hungry again, she'll tell me again, right? Let's see. I don't have a lot of time-intensive care pets. Like I have cats. They're kind of, autopilot. They do their own thing, basically. I make sure they have food and water. I make sure the litter box is cleaned up, but that's about it. That's about all you can make sure with cats. That's another thing, do your research. So we adopted or accepted this Siamese kitten into our life. And I think I mentioned it earlier, but I got about 2 hours of sleep last night because he just wouldn't stop yelling stuff. He wouldn't stop yelling at things. And the one thing, he was out of water. The cats were out of water at 3. And the other thing, the one litter box was full. So I'm still not used to dealing with 3 cats instead of 2. Okay. So those were 2 things that I did at 2 and 3 a.m. And then got up to do, the kid things. The kid's my most time-intensive pet. That's the other thing. So if you can't get the things that your pets need, like lights, heat sources, proper food, don't get that pet. It's not going to work itself out. Don't do that. Why are you doing it? Depends on where people live. Care changes because of the weather. That's true too. Yeah, yeah. If you have bad climate or like barometric pressure can change and mess things up. Humidity levels. I know that humidity levels in the south is really hard to deal with. Heat. I know somebody who has my buddy Cheyenne has we call it a she shed. It's like an outbuilding with all of his animals in it, and he lost AC in that building while he was away, and lost a lot of his collection because of it. Like they basically cooked. Because what can you do? I mean, that's something you kind of don't have any control over unless you have generators and all kinds of stuff. But your generators generally for your house and not your outbuilding. I guess if you had that many animals out there, that's a consideration. But he has them now. But yeah, you have people like Asheville Wildsides. They live in Asheville, North Carolina. So they may still be out of power. I haven't been in contact with Joe for a long time, since the hurricane came through, at least. He's probably still real busy. I want to get in touch with him to see if he wants to do a show about like being weather ready, catastrophe ready. So how to prep for that for your animals. I know his collection is, and hopefully still is, extensive. Making sure animals stay contained. I don't know how many animals escaped during the hurricanes. How many animals are gone? There were houses that were wiped off the map. So whatever was in there is not in there now. So who knows who was keeping what. So yeah, we have to have these containment issues, because that's another reason that APHIS or whatever, Fish and Wildlife, will keep us from getting animals in the future, is if they can't be contained. So I know zoos lost animals. Major private collections lost animals these last two hurricanes. That's not anything. It's not their fault. But, that doesn't matter to Fish and Wildlife. Like, they're still going to come after the hobby as a whole. So that's something to think about. And that's not, I don't know, that's not a mistake per se, but something to consider. I'm in a basement. If anything happens here, all my animals are in the basement. 99% of the time, they're not going to make it out. Okay. Like, bottom line is they're not going to make it out unless I get them out. So if there's a fire, if there's a flood, if there's, I don't know, tornado, whatever, these animals will be entombed. Okay. Which sucks. But to me, it beats the alternative of them escaping and becoming a problem. So not like Bingo's going to go out and breed by herself, but like mourning geckos could be an issue by the end of a summer. Who knows what they would do if they got loose in anywhere, like any self-replicating animal. Who knows what they would do if they got loose? Like, could they do damage to the ecosystem here? Maybe. I mean, temperatures are getting a lot higher. They tend to stay higher. We had a couple of freezes last year. I don't know about by you guys. Anybody south probably noticing temperatures higher. But yeah, that's another thing to consider before getting your animals. Like, containment is a big deal. We're back to the So, sharing misinformation, don't do that. If you're making mistakes, like, own up to it. Don't share it with someone else. Accept it. If 5 people are coming at you saying you're wrong, you're wrong. That's all there is to it. So, I think that's all the mistakes that I have. Another issue I've been dealing with lately here is we have some kind of a mold issue down here. That's been a problem for me. So we had to get all new filters, air scrubbers, and scrub everything. I had to redo a lot of enclosures, and I'm about 3/4 of the way through right now with the isopods. I had to get all new stuff, and I'm letting some white rock wood sit for a little while before I use it, but I'm going to replenish all of that and make sure all that's good too. But yeah, that was something we had to do to take care of here. And for our own health too, obviously. But the animals, I was seeing it in their food dish, like right away, it would kind of mold up. So within, the second day, which is abnormal for me in my house. So we had to do something about that. I didn't want health issues for me or the animals. So That's really all the mistakes I've got that I can cover today. Yeah, that's all, guys. Take care of yourselves. Next week, a real guest, a real show, Aunt Sandy Atkins. She's going to come on. We're going to talk about enrichment for your animals from tubs to their own home rooms. So we're going to talk about all of that. So enrichment is near and dear to my heart. I think our animals get bored. Bingo gets her setup changed around all the time. She's a little overdue. Been a lot going on in my house right now. But she's going to be getting a whole new setup, basically. Not new, but reorganized. So it's going to be a lot better for her. So, yeah, that's going to happen. But enrichment, guys, is where it's at. And that's all I have tonight. Stay awesome to each other. We'll see you next week. Next week will be our closest to Halloween episode. So we'll see if we're doing it then or when is it exactly? Let's see. Yeah, I think next Sunday. My computer's not showing me the dates. Let's see. What do we got here? Today's the 22nd, so next Thursday. Yeah, next week will be the closest. All right, I'm a big dummy. Oh, now we have 4 viewers. Okay, so guys, have a great night, and we'll see you next week. Oh, there's Wally. That's all right, man. It's all right. It would have been gone long, but you got any mistakes, Wally, you want to bring up that you've made in the hobby? Any big ones? Anything you can advise people to avoid as an average keeper or above average keeper? I'm saying they're the average keeper, not you, Wally. You're pro. How long is the show? No, it was out. Oh, next week will be an hour and a half. This week we literally had like one viewer that I'm not sure wasn't me for most of the time. It was me and Moon. So yeah, we're gonna dip out a little early, give people the night off. I covered all my material because there weren't any questions, so I didn't have to allow for any questions. I'm gonna wait for Wally to come up with something. Wally and Russ are gonna come on at the kind of the end of next month. Oh, I get it. Asked if you had mistakes. You asked how long is the show. Not checking heat in the spring on one rack and no breeding for that rack. Okay. Not checking heat in the spring. Oh, so the heat needed to be adjusted to inspire breeding. I'm guessing that's what you're saying. That could suck. Because I don't know how many animals you had on that rack, but that could be significant. Especially some of the high-end animals. Dropping a whole cup of crickets on the floor. Well, that's probably why Nanette does all the work now. Get butterfingers. Yeah, that's a big one. I dropped a cup of red runners in the middle of the floor. Not a cup, maybe like 6. And proceeded to run around right there. Luckily, it was an open floor because I just ran around smashing them, basically, like stepping on them because I was like, there's no way I'm having red runners get out and infest my house. It was like the middle of summer. It's like that. No, not good. But I was literally panicked and half screaming. Yeah. Another escape. I had an escape of a Madagascar hissing cockroach, the big mamas, and my cat found it. I didn't know it had escaped. My cat found it. I just heard all this hissing going on in the corner. It's like, what is happening? Yep. Cat got him. Didn't kill it. Was terrified of it. But that's what it is. Is this new desk that jiggly? Yeah, it is. Sorry about that, guys. I'll have to be more careful with that. But yeah, that's all we got tonight. So next week, Sandy Atkins. She's a little nervous, so go gentle. She'll see. It's easier than it looks, or I wouldn't be doing it. So have a good night, you guys. I hope you're well, and I hope you have a good Halloween if I don't see you. So go nuts. We'll talk to you later. Peace.